Sarah Chen stared at the white invitation card in her hands, her heart sinking with each word she read. Her younger brother David was getting married in 3 weeks, and she had promised to be his maid of honor. The golden letters seemed to mock her as she placed the card on her desk next to a classified file marked, "Urgent, Eyes Only." Her phone buzzed with another text from David. "Can't wait to see you walk down that aisle, sis. Mom's already crying during rehearsals." The message came with a photo of their mother adjusting David's tie, both of them beaming with joy. Sarah felt a sharp pain in her chest as she realized what she had to do. Agent Sarah Chen had worked for the CIA for 8 years, but she had never faced a mission that conflicted so directly with her personal life. The file on her desk contained intelligence about a terrorist cell planning to attack 3 major cities simultaneously. The attack was scheduled for the same weekend as David's wedding, and Sarah was the only agent who had successfully infiltrated the organization. She picked up her secure phone and dialed her handler, Agent Martinez. "I need to talk to you about the Miami assignment," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Chen, you know we can't discuss this over the phone, even on a secure line. Meet me at the usual place in an hour." Sarah drove through the busy streets of Washington, D.C., her mind racing between thoughts of her brother's disappointed face and the thousands of innocent lives that hung in the balance. She had joined the CIA to protect people, to make a difference in the world, but she never imagined that making a difference would cost her the most important moments with her family. The coffee shop on K Street looked ordinary from the outside, but Sarah knew it was one of many front businesses used by intelligence agencies. She spotted Martinez in the corner booth, his gray hair barely visible behind a newspaper. She slid into the seat across from him, her hands trembling slightly. "You look terrible," Martinez said, folding his newspaper. "When's the last time you slept?" "I can't do this," Sarah said directly. "My brother's wedding is the same weekend. I promised him I'd be there. He's the only family I have left after Dad died." Martinez leaned forward, his expression serious. "Sarah, listen to me carefully. We have confirmed intelligence that Omar Hassan's cell is planning coordinated attacks on Miami, Atlanta, and New York. Over 50,000 people could die. You've spent 2 years building trust with these people. You're our only inside source." Sarah closed her eyes, remembering the months she had spent becoming Elena Rodriguez, a Spanish arms dealer with connections to various criminal organizations. She had dyed her hair black, learned to speak with a perfect Madrid accent, and created an entire fictional life story. The terrorists trusted her completely now, and she was scheduled to help them acquire the final components for their bombs during that crucial weekend. "There has to be another way," she whispered. "Can't we arrest them before the wedding? Can't someone else take my place?" "You know it doesn't work like that. If we move too early, the other cells will disappear. If we send someone else, they'll know something's wrong. Hassan is paranoid and smart. One wrong move and thousands die." Sarah thought about David's face when she had agreed to be his maid of honor. They had been sitting in their childhood home, going through their father's belongings after the funeral 6 months earlier. David had looked so lost, so young, even though he was 28. "Promise me you'll be there, Sarah," he had said. "Promise me that work won't come first this time." She had made that promise while holding their father's old watch, the one he never got to pass down to David because a heart attack took him too soon. Their mother had died in a car accident when Sarah was 20 and David was 15. They only had each other now. "What if I refuse?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Martinez sighed deeply. "Then I'll have to find another way, and a lot of people will probably die while we figure it out. But Sarah, I won't order you to miss your brother's wedding. This has to be your choice." The weight of the decision pressed down on Sarah's shoulders like a physical force. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through the photos from David's engagement party. Her brother looked so happy with his fiancée, Rebecca. They had met in college and been together for 6 years. Rebecca was perfect for David, kind, patient, and understanding of his sister's mysterious job that required frequent travel. Sarah had never told David the truth about her work. As far as he knew, she was a consultant for an international security firm, which explained her odd hours and sudden trips. The lies came easily now, but they felt heavier each time she told them. "I need some time to think," Sarah said, standing up from the booth. "You have until tomorrow morning. The operation begins in 72 hours, whether you're with us or not." Sarah drove home to her small apartment in Alexandria, Virginia. The place felt cold and empty, decorated with generic furniture and lacking any personal touches that might reveal her true identity to unexpected visitors. She opened her laptop and stared at the airline booking website, a ticket to California highlighted in her shopping cart. Her phone rang, and David's name appeared on the screen. She stared at it for several rings before answering. "Hey, big sister, I just wanted to check if you got your flight confirmation. Rebecca's mom is asking about seating arrangements for the reception." "David, Sarah started, then stopped. How could she explain that she might not be able to attend without revealing the truth about her job? "You're coming, right? Please tell me work isn't going to interfere again." The pain in his voice was evident, and Sarah remembered all the birthdays, holidays, and important events she had missed over the years. Her graduation from the CIA Academy had been the same weekend as David's college graduation. She had missed their father's birthday dinner because she was undercover in Eastern Europe. The list of missed moments felt endless. "I'll be there," she heard herself saying. "I promise." But even as she said the words, Sarah knew she might be making a promise she couldn't keep. The fate of thousands of innocent people now rested in her hands, and she had less than 24 hours to make the most difficult decision of her life. Sarah barely slept that night. She sat by her window watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, while her phone showed 17 missed calls from David and 12 from Rebecca. She couldn't bring herself to answer them, knowing that hearing their excited voices would make her decision even harder. At exactly 8 a.m., her secure phone buzzed with a message from Martinez. "Decision time. Meet me at headquarters in 1 hour." She showered and dressed in her usual professional attire, but her hands shook as she applied her makeup. In the mirror, she saw a woman torn between duty and love, between saving strangers and protecting her relationship with the only family she had left. The CIA headquarters building loomed before her as she parked her car. She had walked through these doors hundreds of times, but today felt different. Today, she was about to sacrifice something precious for her job, and she wasn't sure if she could live with the consequences. Martinez was waiting in Conference Room C, along with Deputy Director Williams and 2 other agents she didn't recognize. The serious expressions on their faces told her everything she needed to know about the gravity of the situation. "Chen, thank you for coming," Williams said, gesturing for her to sit down. "I understand you're facing a difficult personal decision, but I need you to understand what's at stake here." Williams activated a large screen that showed satellite images of 3 major cities. Red dots marked various locations in each city: shopping centers, subway stations, airports, and sports venues. Hassan's organization has been planning this for 3 years. They call it Black Sunday. Simultaneous attacks designed to cripple the American economy and kill as many civilians as possible. Your intelligence has been crucial in tracking their movements and understanding their timeline. Sarah stared at the images, recognizing some of the locations. She had jogged past that park in Miami during her morning runs while maintaining her Elena Rodriguez cover. Families with children played there every day. The Miami cell is expecting Elena Rodriguez to deliver the final shipment of explosives this Saturday. Martinez continued. "That's the same day as your brother's wedding. If you don't show up, they'll know something's wrong and will either accelerate their timeline or disappear completely." Agent Thompson, one of the unfamiliar faces, leaned forward. "We've run every possible scenario, Agent Chen. Without your inside access, we estimate our success rate at stopping all 3 attacks drops to less than 30%. Sarah felt the weight of those statistics settling on her chest. 30% meant that hundreds, maybe thousands of people would die because she chose her brother's happiness over their lives. But missing David's wedding meant losing the last meaningful relationship in her life, potentially forever. "What about my cover story?" Sarah asked quietly. "How do I explain missing the wedding without David getting suspicious?" Williams and Martinez exchanged glances. "We've prepared a cover story involving a sudden business emergency in Europe. Your consulting firm will back up the story if anyone Checks. Sarah laughed bitterly. Another lie to add to the collection. Do you know how many lies I've told my brother over the years? How many times I've chosen this job over being his sister? The job chose you, Chen, William said firmly. You have a rare combination of skills and psychological profile that makes you perfect for deep cover operations. Not everyone can do what you do. The words felt hollow to Sarah. She thought about her training at the CIA Academy, where instructors had praised her ability to compartmentalize emotions and maintain multiple identities. They had called it a gift, but sitting in this sterile conference room, it felt more like a curse. Her personal phone buzzed with another message from David. Sarah, you're scaring me. Please call back. Whatever work emergency this is, we can figure it out together. The kindness in his message broke something inside her chest. David had always been like this, understanding, supportive, willing to bend over backwards to accommodate her unpredictable schedule. He deserved better than a sister who constantly chose work over family. I need to see the full operational plan, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. Martinez slid a thick folder across the table. Everything's in there. The Miami operation begins Friday night with surveillance. Saturday morning, you meet Hassan's lieutenant at the warehouse to inspect the shipment. Saturday afternoon, you accompany them to the target location for final reconnaissance. Sarah opened the folder and saw detailed maps, photographs, and timelines. David's wedding ceremony was scheduled for 3 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday. Even if everything went perfectly in Miami, she wouldn't be able to catch a flight to California in time. What happens after we arrest them? She asked. Full debriefing, paperwork, court appearances, Thompson replied. You'll be needed for several weeks to help build the prosecution case. Several weeks. Sarah realized that even if she somehow made it to the wedding, she would miss the honeymoon period, the post-wedding celebrations, and probably several other important moments in David's life. The job would continue to consume everything, just as it always had. She pulled out her personal phone and stared at David's contact information. Her finger hovered over the call button for several long seconds before she finally pressed it. Sarah, thank God you're okay. We were so worried. David's voice was filled with relief and love. David, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. The silence on the other end of the line felt like a physical presence in the room. Williams, Martinez, and the other agents pretended not to listen, but Sarah knew they were hanging on every word. There's been an emergency at work, a major client crisis that requires immediate attention. I have to fly to Miami tonight, and I don't know when I'll be back. Sarah, no, please don't do this, not now, it's my wedding. The pain in his voice was so raw that Sarah had to close her eyes to continue speaking. I'm so sorry, David, I know how important this is. I know I promised. You always promise, David said, his voice turning cold. And you always break those promises when something more important comes up. I guess I should have expected this. David, please understand. No, Sarah. I'm done trying to understand. I'm done making excuses for you to Rebecca, to our friends, to myself. If your job is more important than your family, then maybe you should just focus on your job. The line went dead. Sarah sat in the silent conference room, staring at her phone screen. The three men around the table looked uncomfortable, as if they had witnessed something too personal and painful. I'll do it, Sarah said quietly. I'll go to Miami. I'll stop Hassan's attack. Williams nodded solemnly. Thank you, Agent Chen. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten. But as Sarah left the conference room to prepare for her mission, she wondered if her brother would ever forgive her, or if she was about to lose the most important person in her life forever. The weight of her decision felt heavier than any weapon she had ever carried, and she knew that no matter how many lives she saved in Miami, she would carry the guilt of missing David's wedding for the rest of her life. The mission to save thousands of strangers was about to begin, but Sarah felt like she was losing everything that truly mattered to her. Friday evening, Sarah stepped off the plane at Miami International Airport, her stomach churning with a mixture of professional anxiety and personal grief. She had spent the entire flight staring out the window, imagining David trying on his tuxedo without his sister there to adjust his tie. just as she had done at his high school prom. Her phone had been silent since their conversation yesterday. No calls, no texts, no last-minute pleas for her to reconsider. The silence hurt more than his anger had. Sarah took a taxi to a modest hotel in South Beach, where Elena Rodriguez was registered under a Spanish passport that had taken the CIA months to create. She transformed herself in the bathroom mirror, applying darker makeup, inserting colored contacts and styling her hair in the sleek, sophisticated look that Hassan's people expected from their arms dealer contact. Looking at her reflection, Sarah barely recognized herself. Elena Rodriguez was confident, ruthless, and completely dedicated to profit over human life. She was everything that Sarah Chen despised, yet she wore the identity like a second skin. Her secure phone buzzed with a message from Martinez. Hassan's lieutenant confirmed meeting for tomorrow, 10 a.m. Warehouse address attached. Local backup. Team in position. Sarah memorized the address and deleted the message. She spent the evening reviewing her Elena Rodriguez backstory, practicing her Madrid accent, and studying the technical specifications of the weapons she was supposed to be selling. Every detail had to be perfect because one slip could mean death, both for her and for the thousands of people she was trying to save. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Sonoma County, California, David Chen was having his final bachelor party dinner with his closest friends. Rebecca had insisted on keeping it low-key, just good food and conversation at their favorite restaurant. But David kept checking his phone, hoping for a message from Sarah that never came. "She's not coming, is she?" his best friend Marcus asked. Quietly, David shook his head, trying to hide his disappointment. "Work emergency, same as always." Rebecca squeezed his hand across the table. "Maybe she'll surprise us. Maybe she'll catch a last-minute flight." But David knew better. He had watched his sister choose work over family too many times to believe in last-minute miracles. Part of him understood that her job was important. She had always been driven to make a difference in the world. But another part of him felt abandoned, just like when their parents died and Sarah had buried herself in work instead of grieving with him. Back in Miami, Sarah woke before dawn on Saturday morning. Today was the day everything would be decided. She performed her usual pre-mission routine: meditation, weapons check, communication device test, and a final review of all emergency protocols. At 9:45 a.m., Elena Rodriguez walked confidently into a warehouse in an industrial district of Miami. The building looked abandoned from the outside, but Sarah knew that Hassan's people were watching every entrance. She carried herself with the arrogant swagger that arms dealers were known for, even though her heart was racing. Inside the warehouse, she met Carlos Mendez, Hassan's lieutenant and the man responsible for coordinating the Miami attack. He was younger than Sarah had expected, maybe 30 years old, with intelligent eyes and steady hands. She reminded herself that this seemingly ordinary man was planning mass murder. "Elena, always a pleasure," Carlos said in accented English, kissing both her cheeks in greeting. "I trust your flight from Madrid was comfortable?" "Business class is never comfortable enough," Sarah replied in her practiced accent. "But the merchandise I bring makes any inconvenience worthwhile." Carlos led her deeper into the warehouse, where several men were examining boxes of what appeared to be electronic equipment. Sarah recognized some of the components: timing devices, detonators, and circuit boards that could be used to create sophisticated bombs. "Your reputation precedes you," Carlos said. "Hassan speaks very highly of your work in Chechnya." Sarah nodded, remembering the fictional backstory that had taken months to establish. Elena Rodriguez had supposedly sold weapons to rebels in 3 different countries, always managing to stay one step ahead of international law enforcement. "I deliver what I promise," Sarah said. "Which brings us to today's transaction." Carlos showed her to a table covered with detailed architectural plans of Miami International Airport, the Port of Miami, and American Airlines Arena. Red X marks indicated optimal placement locations for maximum casualties and structural damage. "The explosives you provided last month tested perfectly," Carlos explained. "Today's delivery completes our requirements. The operation proceeds as scheduled tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow morning?" Sarah realized that Hassan's people had moved up their timeline. The attacks were happening Sunday, not the originally planned date. This meant her backup teams would be in the wrong positions, and thousands more people would be at risk because Sunday was a busy travel day. She forced herself to maintain Elena's composure while her mind raced through the implications. Excellent. I assume payment will be transferred as usual. Of course. Hassan values reliable partners. Sarah spent the next 2 hours inspecting weapons and explosives, while secretly photographing serial numbers and technical specifications with a camera, hidden in her watch. Every piece of evidence would be crucial for the prosecution case, assuming they could arrest everyone without alerting the other cells in Atlanta and New York. During a break in the inspection, Sarah stepped outside to smoke a cigarette, a habit Elena was known for. She used the opportunity to send a coded message to Martinez. Timeline accelerated. Operation tomorrow AM. Adjust accordingly. As she stood in the Miami sunshine, Sarah's thoughts drifted to California, where David was probably getting ready for his wedding ceremony. The service was scheduled to begin in 5 hours. By now, Rebecca would be having her hair done, David would be nervously adjusting his tie, and their friends and family would be gathering at the vineyard where they had chosen to exchange vows. Sarah imagined walking down the aisle in the pale blue dress that Rebecca had chosen for her maid of honor. She pictured David's smile when he saw his bride, the tears of joy from their guests, and the celebration that would follow. All of it was happening without her, because she was standing outside a terrorist warehouse in Miami, pretending to be someone else entirely. Her secure phone buzzed with Martinez's response. Backup teams repositioning. Maintain cover until signal. Sarah finished her cigarette and returned to the warehouse where Carlos was explaining the final details of tomorrow's attack. The plan was more sophisticated than the CIA had initially understood. The 3 cities weren't just being targeted. Separately, the attacks were coordinated to create maximum psychological impact and media coverage. The beauty of simultaneous strikes, Carlos said with disturbing enthusiasm, is that American emergency services will be overwhelmed. While they respond to Miami, Atlanta burns. While they try to save Atlanta, New York explodes. Sarah nodded as if she approved of the plan, but inside she felt sick. These weren't just statistics or intelligence briefings anymore. These were real people, families planning Sunday outings, travelers trying to get home, workers starting their shifts at the airport and port. When do I receive final payment? Sarah asked, staying in character. Hassan will transfer the funds tonight after you help us transport the materials to their final positions. This was the moment Sarah had been waiting for. Once the terrorists moved their weapons to the actual target locations, her backup teams could arrest everyone simultaneously. But it also meant spending the entire day with dangerous criminals, while David's wedding ceremony began and ended without her. As Carlos continued explaining logistics, Sarah made peace with her decision. She had chosen to save thousands of lives, over attending one wedding, even though that wedding represented the most important relationship in her personal life. The choice felt both heroic and devastating at the same time. What she didn't know was that Hassan had begun to suspect Elena Rodriguez was not who she claimed to be, and that tomorrow would bring dangers she never anticipated. At exactly 3 p.m. Pacific time, David Chen stood at the altar of Sunset Ridge Vineyard, his hands trembling slightly as he watched the doors of the outdoor chapel. The violin music began, and the wedding party started their procession down the petal-covered aisle. Rebecca's bridesmaids walked gracefully in their pale blue dresses, but David's eyes kept searching for the one person who should have been leading them. Sarah wasn't there. Rebecca appeared at the end of the aisle in her flowing white dress, radiant and beautiful, but David could see the concern in her eyes. She knew how much Sarah's absence was hurting him, even on what should be the happiest day of his life. 3,000 miles away in Miami, Sarah was sitting in the passenger seat of Carlos's truck, helping transport boxes of explosives to a storage facility near the airport. Her watch showed 6 p.m. Eastern Time, which meant David's ceremony had just begun. She closed her eyes for a moment, picturing her brother's face as he realized she really wasn't coming. "You seem distracted today, Elena," Carlos observed, glancing at her as he drove through Miami traffic. Sarah forced herself to focus on the mission. Just thinking about tomorrow's success. It's been a long time in the planning. Indeed it has. Hassan will be pleased when we prove that America is not as secure as they believe. As they drove, Sarah used her hidden camera to photograph the route they were taking and the security measures at the storage facility. Every piece of intelligence would help the FBI and local police coordinate their raids tomorrow morning. But something felt wrong. Sarah had developed strong instincts during her years of undercover work, and right now those instincts were screaming that she was in danger. Carlos kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, and she had noticed the same black sedan following them for the past 20 minutes. When they arrived at the storage facility, Sarah saw 3 men waiting by the entrance. Men she didn't recognize from her previous meetings with the terrorist cell. One of them was speaking rapidly into a phone in Arabic, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. "Carlos, who are these men?" Sarah asked, maintaining Elena's confident demeanor even as her hand moved closer to the concealed weapon in her jacket. "Additional security," Carlos replied, but his voice had changed. The friendly tone from earlier was gone, replaced by something cold and suspicious. Sarah realized that her cover had been blown. Somehow, Hassan's organization had discovered that Elena Rodriguez was not who she claimed to be. Her mind raced through the possibilities. Had someone from her past operations recognized her? Had the CIA's false identity been compromised? Or had she made a mistake during today's meetings? As they unloaded the boxes of explosives, Sarah caught sight of one of the unknown men taking photographs of her with his phone. She was definitely being documented for identification purposes, which meant Hassan knew she was an infiltrator. "Elena," Carlos said, his hand now resting on a pistol at his waist. "Hassan would like to speak with you personally before tomorrow's operation. He's waiting inside." Sarah knew this was a trap. If she went inside the building, she might not come out alive. But if she tried to run or fight her way out, the terrorists would scatter, and the attacks would proceed as planned. Thousands of innocent people would die. She made a split-second decision that would change everything. "Of course," Sarah said calmly. "I'm honored that Hassan wants to meet me personally." Inside the storage facility, Omar Hassan was waiting in what appeared to be a makeshift interrogation room. He was a tall, lean man in his 50s with gray hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see through every lie Sarah had ever told. 2 armed men flanked him, their weapons clearly visible. "Sit down, Elena Rodriguez," Hassan said in perfect English. "Or should I say, Agent Sarah Chen of the Central Intelligence Agency." Sarah's blood went cold, but she maintained Elena's confident posture. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a Spanish arms dealer, nothing more." Hassan smiled coldly and placed a photograph on the table between them. It showed Sarah in her CIA uniform during a training exercise 3 years earlier. Someone had leaked her identity to the terrorists. "We know who you are, Agent Chen. We know you've been feeding information to your government for months. The question is, what do we do with you now?" Sarah realized that she was probably going to die in this warehouse, 3,000 miles away from her brother's wedding. David would never know the truth about her work, or why she had missed the most important day of his life. He would spend the rest of his life thinking she had chosen work over family, never understanding that she had died trying to save thousands of lives. Meanwhile, at the vineyard in California, David and Rebecca were exchanging vows as the sun set behind the rolling hills. The ceremony was beautiful, but David's voice cracked with emotion when he promised to always put family first. Rebecca understood the reference to Sarah's absence, and she squeezed his hands tightly as they said their "I do's." Back in Miami, Hassan was explaining his new plan to Sarah with disturbing calm. "Since you know all the details of our operation, we cannot simply kill you and proceed as planned. Your death would alert your handlers, and they would move to stop us. Instead, you're going to help us." "I'll never help you hurt innocent people," Sarah said firmly. "Oh, but you will," Hassan replied, producing a tablet computer. On the screen was live surveillance footage of David and Rebecca's wedding reception. "We know all about your brother David Chen and his new wife Rebecca Martinez. Beautiful ceremony, by the way. Our people are in position around the vineyard right now. Sarah's heart stopped. The terrorists had found David and Rebecca. Her personal life and her mission had collided in the most dangerous way possible. Here's what's going to happen, Hassan continued. You're going to contact your CIA handlers and tell them that the operation has been postponed. You're going to convince them to call off their surveillance and backup teams, and you're going to help us modify our attack plan to ensure maximum success. And if I refuse? Hassan gestured to the tablet where Sarah could see David and Rebecca laughing with their guests, completely unaware of the danger surrounding them. Then your brother and his wife die tonight, along with everyone at their wedding. 43. Innocent people, including elderly relatives and small children. Sarah stared at the screen, her mind racing through impossible options. If she cooperated with Hassan, thousands of people in 3 cities would die tomorrow. If she refused, David and Rebecca would be murdered tonight along with dozens of other innocent wedding guests. She was trapped between saving her brother and saving thousands of strangers, with no good choices and no time to find another solution. The terrorists had outmaneuvered her completely, using her love for David as the ultimate weapon against her. I need time to think, Sarah said quietly. You have 10 minutes, Hassan replied. Then we need your decision. Will you save your brother, or will you save your country? You can't do both. As Sarah sat in that warehouse surrounded by terrorists and explosives, she realized that her worst nightmare had come true. Her double life had finally caught up with her, and now the most important person in her world was in deadly danger because of the work she did in the shadows. The clock on the wall showed 8:30 p.m. In California, David and Rebecca were probably cutting their wedding cake, surrounded by love and joy and hope for their future together. They had no idea that their lives hung in the balance of a decision being made by the sister who had missed their special day. Sarah stared at the surveillance footage of her brother's wedding reception, her mind working frantically to find a solution that didn't exist. David was dancing with Rebecca under string lights, completely unaware that armed terrorists were watching from the shadows. The joy on their faces made Sarah's heart break even more. Time's up, Agent Chen, Hassan said, checking his watch. What's your decision? Sarah looked directly into Hassan's eyes, her voice steady despite the terror she felt inside. I'll make the call to my handlers. But first I want proof that your people will leave the wedding alone once I cooperate. Hassan nodded to one of his men, who stepped forward with a phone. Call your brother, Hassan commanded. Tell him you're sorry you missed his wedding, but make it brief. Any attempt to warn him, and everyone at that vineyard dies immediately. Sarah dialed David's number with trembling fingers. The phone rang 3 times before he answered, music and laughter echoing in the background. Sarah? David's voice was surprised and hurt. I didn't think you'd call. David, I'm so sorry I missed your wedding. I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I want you to know that I love you more than anything in the world. There was a pause, and Sarah could hear David moving away from the noise of the reception. Sarah, you sound strange. Are you okay? Where are you? Sarah glanced at Hassan, who was watching her with deadly intensity. I'm fine. I just wanted to hear your voice and tell you that I'm proud of you. Take care of Rebecca, okay? Be happy. Sarah, what's going on? You're scaring me. I have to go. Kiss Rebecca for me. Sarah hung up before David could respond, tears streaming down her face. Hassan seemed satisfied with the call, nodding to his man to lower the phone. Now call your handlers, Hassan ordered. Sarah dialed Martinez's secure number, knowing that this phone call would either doom thousands of innocent people or sign her brother's death warrant. When Martinez answered, she forced her voice to sound professional and calm. Martinez, it's Chen. There's been a development in the Miami operation. What kind of development? You were supposed to check in 2 hours ago. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would haunt her forever. The terrorists have postponed their attack. Hassan got spooked by increased security presence around the city. They're calling off the operation indefinitely. The silence on the other end of the line lasted several long seconds. That doesn't make sense, Chen. Our surveillance teams haven't detected any changes in their behavior patterns. Hassan is more paranoid than we thought. He's decided to wait until security levels decrease. I'm maintaining my cover, but I recommend pulling back the backup teams to avoid further suspicion. Chen, this sounds wrong. What aren't you telling me? Hassan was holding up the tablet, showing Sarah the live feed of David and Rebecca cutting their wedding cake. Armed men were visible in the background, close enough to kill everyone in seconds. I'm telling you what I observed, Martinez. Pull back the teams and wait for further instructions. That's an order from your field agent. Fine. But I don't like it. Check in every 6 hours until further notice. Sarah hung up and handed the phone back to Hassan, feeling like she had just betrayed everything she stood for. The terrorist leader looked pleased with her performance. Excellent work, Agent Chen. Now let's discuss the modifications to our attack plan. For the next 3 hours, Sarah was forced to help Hassan's organization improve their bomb placement. Strategy: optimize their timing to maximize casualties and identify security weaknesses in their target locations. Every suggestion she made felt like a betrayal of innocent lives, but the alternative was watching her brother die on what should have been the happiest night of his life. Meanwhile, in California, David couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong with Sarah's phone call. Rebecca noticed his distraction during their first dance as a married couple. "What's bothering you?" she whispered in his ear as they swayed to the music. Sarah called, but something was off. She sounded scared, and she kept saying goodbye like she might not see me again. Rebecca frowned, knowing how close the siblings were despite Sarah's frequent absences. "Maybe you should call her back?" David tried calling several times, but Sarah's phone went straight to voicemail. His worry grew throughout the evening, even as he tried to enjoy his wedding celebration. Back in Miami, Hassan was revealing the full scope of his organization's infiltration of American society. They had been planning these attacks for 3 years, carefully placing